Hello Shamus, welcome back to the channel for my March 2021 Banlist predictions. As you know, March 1st, which is today, is when Konami said that the banlist wouldn't be coming out earlier than this day. So anytime this week, maybe in the next 2 weeks, we could very much be seeing the ban list. So yeah, this is my take on the ban list and what could possibly be happening with it. So let's get right into the ban section. To start off with the band, we're going with VFD, or True King of All Calamities. This card has the ability to end turns, has the ability to start new turns with just the fact that it's going to end your opponent's turn. Yeah, having the ability to basically just nuke a whole attribute, and then even after that, making that whole attribute nuked on the field, and also making everything on the board that attribute is just a real blowout card that is too easy to summon. I think everyone's in agreement with this card that it is getting banned just because it is too strong. And the fact that Virtual World as a deck can pump out two of these easily in a turn by playing through hand traps is really absurd. And even the ease just to put out one through hand traps on Virtual World can put out one VFD playing through 3 to 4 hand traps depending on their hand, which is just really, really, really insane. True King of All Calamities is a card that should be banned just simply because it has that Azathoth kind of power, and that's the reason Azathoth got banned, because it stopped your opponent from playing, and Konami doesn't like those cards. As you'll see on the next card in the list, these cards both have that similar don't let your opponent play effect. So let's get on to the next card, is number S0 Utopic Zexel. This card is absolutely absurd, and the ease of summoning it with the new Numeron cards is really insane. Right now, this deck isn't seeing too much play, but once it does, and I'm telling you it will happen, if this card comes unchecked, we're going to have a format where it's just going to be extremely toxic because of the ease they have to bring out this card. And especially with new archetypes coming out, there will be builds that will be able to play through hand traps even better than the Numerons right now, and bring out this card insanely easily. And that's why this card needs to go checked, because it is really busted. It has that Azathoth, it has that True King of All Calamities type effect. And the reason that these kind of cards have to go checked is because, for example, cards like Kali Yuga are much harder to set up and just aren't seeing play. But this card has has very high potential to see play just because of how easy it is to put out. But yeah, I don't really have much more to say because it does tie in with the fact that it has really similar ties with VFD and why it should get banned in that sense. So yeah, let's go on to the next card. This card is pretty self-explanatory on its ban factor. Our next card is Guard Dragon LP. This card, again, has some of the most busted potential every single format that there's a dragon deck. And the fact that Dragon Link at the moment only has to use this card as an extender and not as a main combo piece is really insane, because that means that they're preventing themselves from getting ashed, they're preventing themselves from getting any hand trap in the game. This card just needs to get banned because there is always that format where dragons will overtake everything, and this card puts those decks over the top every single time. And having the ability to use that every single time is really something that needs to go. Especially with cards like Omni Dragon Brotar, Starleech Safer, that can be summoned and just give you more extenders on top of that, on top of extenders, on top of more extenders. It's just a telltale sign to say goodbye to these cards. Yeah, so that's it for the banned cards. I think this is pretty solid. If there was a card that wasn't getting banned on this list, it would definitely be Utopic Zexel. I think LP and VFD have high chances of getting banned, especially VFD. Onto our limited, we're going with Cyber Angel Ben 10. This card enables every single Drytron play, and it searches out floodgates like, for example, it searches out Lancia from the deck, and it searches out cards like Vanitys Ruler, which are really busted, searches out Herald of Ultimatus, also helps you get to Eva, many insane plays, and the reason this card is so good in Drytron is because all the Drytrons tribute for cost. So this card is guaranteed to resolve, and it always is going to bait a hand trap from your opponent, allowing your Drytrons to continue to play on. So if they have Alpha Thuban in hand, they tribute Benten, they're going to be able to search that other Benten from deck either way. So they're always going to have that plus. Doesn't matter which one you ash because it's going to resolve. More on that, this card just provides a full fairy toolbox in the deck. Also, like supporting cards like Herald of Ultimateness, which some turns you can set up 5 to 6 Omni negates, including summons in that. So your opponent full hand can get negated because that card's not once per chain. And the ability to search out that many fairies is possible with a card like Benten at 3. The deck will struggle a lot more with Benten at 1, even possibly scrapping the entire engine. And this is a very necessary hit because with Lightning Overdrive providing that new rank 1 Drytron monster, it is very important that Ben 10 does go to 1. And even not 1, banned, because this card is really ridiculous. But I think 1 will keep the deck in check and make sure that they don't spiral out of control. Next on the list we have Curse Ellin to 1. I think this is more of the problem card other than Scarlet Sanguine. Other people have different opinions. It is really a 50-50. But I think this card could totally go to 1 because you don't want to be checking off the other main decks and leaving this deck open because that's what funnels into a tier 0 format. Especially over this next period of time where we're not having any new archetypes getting released. We're going to see Ellic be played a lot more if you see these decks get checked, but not Eldritch. So yes, we really need to see an Eldritch band as this Eldritch hit, as this is a searcher for the entire deck, and it provides so much value to the deck that it does slow them down. Not to say that Scarlet Sanguine doesn't deserve to be limited, because it does. It's still a really busted card, but I do think this is the better contender. Even so, the deck can still play through this to 1, and that's what I want to see because whenever you see a deck like Ellic, it reminds me of a deck like Salamangreat, which is usually healthy when you see a deck like that performing decently well in the format. It usually means there's some sort of equilibrium happening. So yes, I do believe that Curse Elwyn can be at 1. Next, for the big one, Vanity's Emptiness. I do believe that this card can come to 1 at this point. It's been banned for a while now, and I think this card is a really big meta shaker. Yeah, this card is super ridiculous, and it will help slow down the format for some of those control decks. And it's not like this card is insanely hard to out anymore because so many decks send cards to the graveyard without having to special summon that it's insane. Or even so, for example, um, with Virtual World, activating a card like Kowloon, um, just when it gets sent to grave, your Vanity's Emptiness is going to go get sent to grave. So it's not that big of a deal. Vanity's Emptiness is still a broken card, don't get me wrong, but I do think it is okay and it is healthy to bring back this card to 1 to slow down some of those insane combo decks that don't have access to that discard or send to grave potential. Moving on from that, next card to 1 is Heavy Metal Fool's Electromite. Uh, Getting on with this would be a huge plus for Shrift, but yeah, this card I do believe can come back to 1 because Pendulum simply isn't performing right now, and this card will definitely give them the boost to be able to start playing properly again. With Electromite to 1, the deck can start playing at a tier 2 to possibly even a tier 1 deck with some of those good Pendulum players. This card is really good, but the threshold of the other decks is putting a cap on Pendulum's potential. With this card at 1, it's also going to serve as a set seller for Konami's new Pendulum archetype coming up pretty soon. That's why I also do believe that Heavy Metal Flows can come to 1 because this card is a set seller. In general though, this card is really good, helps the deck a lot, and coming to 1, this card would be really helpful. Moving on, for the semi-limited, I believe that Call by the Grave can come to 2. Konami usually doesn't like bringing stuff from 1 to 3 or 3 to 1 right away. A lot of times they'll do 3 2 1, 1 2 3. I don't like that system, but from speculation, I do believe that the most probable thing to happen is Call by the Grave to 2. I do want this card at 3 because it is a super healthy card in the format. I do think this card is really good to have in your decks, and it helps other decks play against other decks. When every deck is running 3 Call by the Grave, it really helps you play, and it also serves as an interruption. I do think this card is a healthy card to have. Konami not seeing it that way, I personally do. But yeah, Call by the Grave, really, really good card, and do think that it can come to 2. The next card we have Dino or Pancratops. I think this card should be a 3 right now. I don't even think this card should have been hit to 1. This card can 100% come back to 3, and it would just be a staple side deck card. We have a card like Alpha in the format right now, and realistically, it almost does a little bit more than Pancratops, giving you that extra body on board. And it's at 3, and no one's playing it. With Pancratops at 3, it would be a completely healthy and fine card to have in the format. Yeah, so same theory as Call by the Grave, this card would be very healthy to have. Moving on to the Unlimited, we have DeLorean. This card's not going to see much play. There's not really any explanation to it. This card just, it's not as strong as it used to be, and yeah, I don't think this card is going to see too much play at Unlimited. It's not seeing any play at 1, and I don't think it's going to see any play at 3. Next, True King's Return. This card can come off the list. True Kings obviously aren't going to see any play. There's not really too much explanation. I think a lot of people are speculating this card to come off the list. Then Firewall Dragon with its errata. I think this card is going to be completely useless. As you can see on the screen, I put the errated version. It's much, much, much worse. It is really, really bad, and it really does not like change the game. If this card comes back to 3, because there's not going to be loops of the card. There's not going to be anything like that, just because it's going to be really hard to utilize this card. Yeah, so that's it for the Banlist prediction. I think this is a very probable outcome. There is a lot of stuff and a lot of factors that happen during this time, or take part during this time. But the most probable cards to get hit are Ben 10 and VFD. Those two cards are cards I could almost guarantee are going to be on that list. VFD being banned and Ben 10 being limited, just because they enable too much. Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.